Hey guys, it's Eric here at Farpoint Restorations. Time for part 2 of pan repairs on the old 66 Beetle project. This is the part that I've been dreading. I need to do a lot of this kind of work on the bus project that we have going on here on the channel as well, but this is a rear floor pan, the battery tray, very common failure point on Beetles and Super Beetles of this era. And so what we got here is a replacement panel. And what you can see here is I've got these markers. These things are awesome. The Rev Mark markers, really good markers. I've marked out areas that I'm going to trim the metal on. Big disappointment, but I guess I should have known this was going to be the case. These panels that they sell for these are not universal. They are universal. They're not direct fit. And so a lot of beating and banging and trimming is going to have to occur before we can even begin to consider welding this thing into place. And that's where we're at. I have got my initial places that I'm going to cut, and I do have my old Ryobi Sawzall, and so I'm going to trim this board up, or trim this floor pan up a little bit. I don't want to go too fast, but that means it's going to take a lot longer in the backside to make sure that I don't trim too much out of it. Let's do it. All right, well, I didn't know how much of that to film, but I hope it gave you the general idea of what I'm up to. Trimming, lots of pieces here that we trimmed off in order to make it fit the existing pan and the contours of the pan that's in here right now. Got that done, a lot of hammering inside, as you just saw, to, again, contour everything to fit where we're gonna need it. And now, before moving on to the actual welding, I'm going to take a wire brush or sander or both and clean all the surfaces on both sides around these edges, because we need to weld it, and in order to weld it you got to have a pretty good clean surface. The pan itself, the existing portion of the pan, already went through and cleaned all that. You can see that in part 1. Wire brush, sander, vacuum, and wiping it down. So now we'll do this, and then we're ready to start. And when we start, what we're going to do is tack weld along this back and the sides, getting it centered. Once we have that centered, with just a few good spots, we're going to go and do some more hammering and try to flatten everything out, and then we can start welding our way through there. I may need my wife to help me with this, because no matter how much you beat and bang, you can see this piece is still up. It needs to be folded farther down. I'm hammering on it, but because the whole thing is moving, sometimes it just doesn't want to sit. And when you're going to weld, you want to have direct contact there. You want to have a nice pushed, so everything's flat. So I'm going to use like a dowel rod or something like that to push down on it when I hit it with the welder. Fair notice, not a welder, not a body guy by trade, auto tech, auto mechanic by trade. So this is probably not going to be the prettiest job you've ever seen, but it'll get the job done, and it is a huge improvement over the rusty mess that was here before. All right, let's get that grinder out. All right, well, the spot welding is done. A lot of trimming, a lot of hammering. And I was waiting to get seam sealer. So I have some latex around here, but I figured I'd get some seam sealer. Gonna seam seal the top, and then we're gonna paint over all of it. But since I don't have the seam cylinder, I'm gonna paint. I'm gonna leave some areas open here, and we'll get the seam sealer in there after the fact. So let's paint it. And hopefully you can see, I got, obviously I finished sanding. You're never gonna get it perfect, but a lot of that rust did come off. And then I got a sponge and some soap, and we cleaned up a lot of this stuff here. As you can see, we wiped down so to get all that rust dust out of the way. Now the paint I have here is just Rust-Oleum flat black enamel, and not automotive grade by any means, but it's going to do just fine for giving this a light coat to protect it against you know, the little stuff. Will it stop it from rusting again? Not forever, but considering the car is over 50 years old, it's done a pretty good job so far. So we'll slap a coat on here. One of the other reasons I'm painting today and not waiting until the seam sealer comes is that it is, right now it's like 48 degrees outside. I've got the heat on in the garage, and that's helping to bring the temperature up a little bit to make it more bearable. This paint needs to be applied between 50 and 90 degrees. And for the next 10 days after today, well, that's just not going to happen. We're going to be going down into the teens and staying there. And so I figured I might as well paint while the weather's good enough to paint, and we'll worry about you know, the other stuff here after the fact. So that's it. I guess I'll probably just go to a montage here of this, but we'll take one last look at what it looks like when it's painted up, and that'll wrap up this video. Let's do it. Well, that's it. We have our new pan welded in, tack welded in, and I will go ahead and put seam sealer on there as soon as it arrives. And we've cleaned and scuffed and sanded and recoated with some enamel-based flat black Rust-Oleum. And so that is going to hopefully give us back our nice base. I will wash the carpets that are still in here, replace just these bottom carpets. We're going to cut our own carpeting, and then we're ready to put this thing back together. Well, I guess that'll do it for today. This has been probably the most difficult video that I've made on any of the series that I've put out on this channel. Because of the tight quarters in here, couldn't really get a camera in and get the right angles. So I hope I was able to share with you at least some of what I was doing here, tack welding that stuff in. Now, one thing I do want to point out, I was reading when I was preparing to do this job, some guys out there will drill small holes and actually just rivet these pans into place. That with seam sealer seems to be enough. So that's something for y'all to think about if you don't have a welder or don't have the skill to weld properly, and I'm right at the line. That was another option we could have gone with. In the next segment, we will start reassembling. We're going to put the rear seats back in, cover that over, and then we will start with the carpeting for the bottom, and then we will put in the passenger seat, and hopefully I will make a separate video. We're waiting on the foam to arrive so I can show you a full front seat rebuild on this thing, tear it all down, take the old foam and horsehair off, put some new foam on it, put it back together, and we'll be back in business. Hope you're enjoying the series, mini-series I should say. Well, no, you know what? It's going to be a full series because we're still waiting on a gas tank. We're still waiting on a couple of other little doodads. going to swap out the carburetor or rebuild it. So we'll have those videos in there as well. Till next time, my friends, take care.